on Sunday and temperatures start to improve.
Good. Right, I'm back with the latest from the BBC London newsroom in half an hour. There's plenty more on our website at the usual address, bbc.co.uk/London. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Hello, this is Breakfast with Naga Marchetti and Charlie Stayt.
Good morning to you. It is 7:32.
And then as we head into the weekend, we'll keep those cold, frosty nights. But there should be some sunshine around on Saturday, a little cloudier on Sunday, and temperatures start to improve.
Violent protests in the United States have been condemned by leaders around the world. In a tweet, Boris Johnson described the clashes as disgraceful and called for a peaceful and orderly transfer of power to President-elect Joe Biden.
We can speak now to the Home Secretary Priti Patel, who joins us from Westminster. Very good morning to you. How do you characterise what many people, I'm sure you as well, witnessed overnight?
Well, I have been watching the news bulletins and we've just seen thoroughly unacceptable scenes of violence, really terrible scenes of violence. And as we all now know, people have died throughout this violence as well. Beyond words, really, at the heart of democracy. You know, America is an incredible beacon of liberty, freedom and democracy. And to all, the just the level of language and rhetoric, clearly I think there is no scope for violence whatsoever. And it's just appalling in terms to move on, have the transition that is absolutely essential. And the type of transition that America is famous for, we've seen has just been so appalling and there's no justification for it.
When you talk about language and rhetoric...
Well, his comments directly led to the violence. You
see the sequence of events that...
Well, let's be very clear in terms of the scenes that have been, what we've seen basically in Washington and the display of the violence. Made a number of comments yesterday that helped to fuel that violence. And whatsoever, his language was not that to de-escalate the violence effect.
Lines are being drawn, aren't they, here, in terms of what people are prepared to say about, we love you, I know how you feel. What do you make of that?
Well, look, he failed to condemn the violence, and I think that is wrong. At that stage, as Charlie, you've just said, protesters were inside. I think that's wrong.
It's inescapable that people will, given what you're saying, that...
Well, look, I've already said, we've all been watching the scenes overnight, late lot of democracy. America takes great pride in full of tolerance and respect, certainly through the democratic process. People, tragic for those who've lost their loved ones in the violence yesterday. Important, we want America to be successful. We want, America as a close friend and a close ally. I absolutely want them to move on now and, have that orderly transition that they need so that they continue with their own governance, which, that transition and the inauguration is due to take place on the 20th of January.
Do you have any respect for Donald Trump now?
Well, this isn't about respect for an individual. I've already said, his comments have been associated with that violence and he has failed to condemn that violence. And I think that is completely wrong. People have died. What we've seen is just so extraordinary. There is no justification for it. And as I've said, just on the scenes of violence, condemning that violence, de-escalating that violence, clearly there is more that he could have done and should have done. And the fact that he has failed to condemn that violence, I think is absolutely wrong. OK, let's move on to issues here. Of course, your Home Secretary be related to the laws around what people are allowed to do. How do you... Well, I think, first of all, when it comes to pay tribute to the way the police across the country, all police forces who obviously the police have been out every single day enforcing much quicker than they had done previously. They'll continue to pursue egregious breaches of the coronavirus Christmas period. We've seen something like over 800 fixed penalty notice fines being issued. And right now, quite frankly, it's very, very clear that it becomes much clearer in terms of the way in which the police will communicate with the public. OK, what I'd like to do is, Simon's got in touch with us this morning. You'll be aware, lots of people have lots of questions. Well, I think, first of all, you're speaking in a hypothetical situation about someone that could be outdoors. The police will always exercise their judgment. The police are exceptional at exercising their professional judgment based on the guidance that has been issued to police forces. However, you've also mentioned about not wearing face coverings in supermarkets. Now, that is completely wrong. It's working with them on guidance, advice, as we always, on the type of measures and that fines are put against supermarkets and retailers and businesses that are not following the TEL outline, that fails to be delivering or fulfilling those social, given a fine of up to £10,000.
So but you're talking about the business, aren't you? What I was curious about is the individual.
You've heard me say already, the police will exercise their judgment on the conversation that they're having with that individual. Now, that'll be based on the circumstances as legitimate reasons as to, there may be medical reasons, health reasons as to why they are not wearing a face covering, then clearly that individual will have that conversation. I think it's really important to emphasise that everybody, this isn't just about policing, everyone has a responsibility to rising at an unprecedented level throughout the Christmas period. And now, of course, this is exactly why we are in this lockdown situation all over. It could be following the guidance, and I would urge everyone to continue to follow.
Question for you.
Of course, we have the vaccination being rolled out.
Priti Patel, this question for you from Sean. And a lot of this does come down to individual situations, doesn't it? Which is why sometimes...
Well, it doesn't, because the advice is clearly to stay at home. Miles is not acceptable in terms of travel. On the stay-at-home advice that has been issued, your viewers, again, for me to restate that we are in a pandemic, that we're in a very serious situation right now. We're at the stage where we have a rollout program for mass vaccination right now, which is of this virus. And the way this virus spreads is our people. And so this is why we're now urging people to stay at home. Work, if you cannot work from home, if you're ill and seeking medical treatment, exercise. But other than that, we are urging everybody to stay at home.
Priti Patel, Home Secretary, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Time now is just coming up to 7:45. Time to
everybody, to government and to families, to work with education, have some calm and some patience for us to get this organised. Remember, governments change direction in a moment, and schools need some time to respond to all of that. But on the home learning front, it's not all about digital. We haven't all got all the devices there, but it's about engagement as well as just having a piece of kit.
Gavin Williamson yesterday announced that pupils in England who don't have any access to laptops are designated as vulnerable children. And I suppose this extends the point you were making.
Not equipped to make. Now, what we're going to have to do is have some calm in education and start working together rather than accusing each other of failure. However we've got to this situation, we have a moment right now where the government can work with educators and can work with the profession and benefit from their educational expertise about how we best keep education going for children during these really difficult times under the new restrictions that the government has brought forward in the blink of an eye. So what I'm really appealing for is two things: for calm amongst families as well, a little bit of patience to allow schools to get organised. Remember, they've had no time at all to get organised since the last decision, and some patience from government. Accusing schools and bringing legal action forward and saying in the chamber of the House in England yesterday that you can complain if the school isn't doing what you want and complain to Ofsted. It really isn't trusting teachers and putting trust in our educators, which is what we need right now.
Yep. OK, good to talk to you. Paul Whiteman, General Secretary of the National Association of Head Teachers. Thanks for your time with us this morning.
Headlines are coming up next.
I am making some artwork.
Good morning, welcome to Breakfast.
Death, violence and chaos in Washington.
Lawmakers approving the result of the presidential election.
Politicians here. The Home Secretary has condemned Donald Trump for
violence, and he has failed to condemn that violence, and I think that is completely wrong.
This programme of its kind in NHS history.
Morning, the last-minute decision not to fully reopen primaries means most meals have had.
Through sport grind to a halt again.
There's some ice to watch out for, some freezing fog. In that, in northern Scotland, further snow showers to come. It's all happening in the weather, and I'll have the details in 10 minutes.
Good morning. It's Thursday, the 7th of January. Our top